There are many different situations where it is advisable, or at least a good idea, to use a personal lubricant. But there are also many different types of lubes that have different benefits and contraindications when it comes to using them, depending on what kind of sex play or intimate play you are engaging in. Which is why it is important to know what kind of lubricant you should be using, when to use it, and how to best apply it. And this is exactly what we're going to discuss today. My name is Helena Nista and I make videos that help you have the best sex of your life. And in this video, I'm going to tell you what lubricant you should be using. Now, I understand that for many different people, the matter of using a lubricant in the bedroom can be a little bit tricky because in their heads, the need for a lubricant indicates a problem. And quite understandably, we don't want to feel like we have a problem in bed. We just want things to be easy and spontaneous and pleasurable and always feeling good and fun. But I really want to change that perception and challenge you maybe if that's the way you are feeling about lubricants. I think of a lubricant as a help, as a way to make things easier and more fun, particularly if things can get a little tricky in your sexual experience together, which can happen at times. But I also like to think of it as a sex toy, as an accessory that can make my sexual experiences even better than they were before it, even if there isn't any actual challenge or problem that the lubricant might be addressing. So we all know that the more wet and slippery the sex is, the better it typically is. And you'll definitely know that if you as a man have ever tried to penetrate a woman whose vagina was on the dry side, or if you're a woman that a man was penetrating when there wasn't enough lubrication inside of your vaginal canal. It doesn't feel good. In many instances, it actually feels uncomfortable or even painful. And that's definitely not something we want in the bedroom. We don't want the painful, uncomfortable. We all want the awesome, exciting, wet, slippery fun. So why not adding a bit of lubricant at least from time to time, just to see if it can add to your sexual experiences with your lover. And this is especially the case when you are using lubricants that have particular qualities, like giving you particular kind of sensations, like warming sensations, cooling sensations, tingling sensations, etc. So this might be really worth exploring and visiting your local sex shop or just shopping online in order to find these different kinds of lubricants with these kind of qualities that can enhance or add to what you're already feeling when you're sexual together. But I also want you to understand that sometimes adequate lubrication can just be a bit tricky or challenging, regardless of how much you love each other, regardless of how turned on you are by each other, and how much you want to have sex together. Sometimes our bodies just do not produce enough lubrication, and that happens. That's normal, that's common. So if you're feeling like things are a bit on the dry side, either in the beginning of penetration, when the vagina hasn't had time to appropriately warm up yet or lubricate enough yet, or maybe towards the later stages of your intercourse experience together, when maybe the lubrication kind of has dried up a bit. And obviously when we talk about that sexy lubrication, natural lubrication, it's not just the vaginal lubrication, it's also pre-cum that the man is producing, so they're both contributing to the wetness. But again, sometimes there isn't just enough wetness, and so when you're feeling like things are a bit dry and a little uncomfortable, there's just a bit maybe too much friction for things to be pleasurable, that's definitely the time to apply some lubricant. You might also opt for a lubricant if your male partner, is larger than average, and accommodating him by your maybe average size vagina is a little tricky or painful. It does break my heart when I hear about these cases where women talk about experiencing all this pain and discomfort during sex with a man who is well endowed, or even when they mentioned actually bleeding, their vaginas bleeding during intercourse. That should never be happening. That is not the right way to have sex. If one of the lovers is in pain or discomfort or even bleeding, that is no way to proceed. So in those cases, it is particularly important to make sure that you have lube handy and that you are using it before the penis goes inside of the vagina. If you're a person of a certain age, or if your female lover is a woman of a certain age, there is also the matter of menopause, where typically the vaginal walls produce a lot less lubrication, and so sex can become a little bit more tricky. In such cases, I would again recommend absolutely using a lubricant, even if you use it or need to use it or want to use it every single time. Like, that's perfectly fine. If applying a lubricant is what it takes for sex to be fun, pleasurable, or even orgasmic, then it's absolutely okay to do this every single time. If you're not sure whether you might need a lubricant or not, but in your head there's that kind of worry or anxiety as a woman around, oh, this might hurt, or potentially I'm not sure if it's gonna hurt, that fear is actually your indication that you should use a lubricant. Because as soon as your body is in this state of fear or anxiety or stress about potential upcoming uncomfortable experience, then your muscles will start to tense up in order to protect your vagina from pain. Unfortunately, that just means that you experience even more pain, because penetrating a vagina where those pelvic floor muscles are tensing up is even more uncomfortable. There's also a matter of how to apply the lubricant. Do you put it on the penis, or do you put it on the vulva, around the vaginal opening and maybe inside of the vagina? This is a matter of personal preference. You can do one or the other, you can do both. In my experience, applying lubricant to the penis works really well, works actually better, because then that penis coming in is going to lubricate any areas of my vulva or vagina that potentially aren't quite wet enough yet. But feel free to do your own experimentation and see what's best for you and your partner. Next of all, I would strongly urge you to only use as a lubricant products that are specifically intended as a personal lubricant. So that means not using baby oils, lotions, Vaseline, or any sort of flavored products. This kind of products could potentially disrupt the environment of the vagina. They might have a different pH to the vagina itself, and so they might lead to discomfort or even an infection. And even in situations where you are using a product specifically designed as a personal lubricant, but you haven't used it before, it still might be a good idea to test it first. Put it on a small area of your skin and just give it 24 hours to see whether there's any irritation or discomfort or redness that you notice on your skin. Because it's also true that some of these products will work for your body better than others. An exception to the rule of not using products that were not specifically designed as personal lubricants are edible oils. So typically oils that are used in cooking that can go inside of your body, that can be ingested, they are typically also safe for external use. But again, I would urge you, just in case, just to be safe, just try and test that product first and see if there is any reaction. And if there isn't, you're good to go. To be extra safe, it is also a good idea to check the pH of the product that you are using in order to figure out whether it works and matches the pH of the body, particularly of the vagina and the anus, if that's where you decide to venture. The pH of the vagina is between 3.5 and 4.9, and the pH of the anus is around 6. So if the product you're using is matching those numbers, those levels, then you should be fine. Okay, let's talk about lubricants themselves, because there are 3 main groups or types of lubricants that you need to know about. And the first group or type of lubricants are water-based lubes. These lubricants are typically fairly cheap and also easy to obtain, because you can get them in many supermarkets or chemists, so there's no need to venture to a sex shop. If they get onto your sheets, which typically will happen if you're using a lubricant, then they are quite easy to wash off and they don't stain the sheets. They're also safe to use with condoms and with sex toys. So if you're using a condom or a sex toy, you can apply the water-based lubes as well, and you'll be fine. The downside of using water-based lubricants is that they typically dry out quite quickly, so you might need to keep reapplying them. They're also not typically too thick or too strong in their action, so they are not suitable for certain, maybe more intense sexual activities that require something stronger, like, for example, anal sex. The next category of lubricants are oil-based lubes, and these typically have that kind of more thickness to them, and so they also last a lot longer than water-based lubricants. So you don't need to keep reapplying them too often. Maybe even you will only need to apply them once during an experience, a sexual experience, and that will last you for as long as you need them. But obviously, if you feel like you need more, then make sure to apply more. They're also fairly cheap and easily available, particularly if you're using edible oils. You might even be able to find them in your kitchen, things like olive oil, coconut oil, or even Crisco. When it comes to getting them off your sheets, that can be an issue. They can stain sheets, so just be mindful of that. And if that's a worry, if that's a problem, maybe put down some towels on your bed. Finally, if you're using a condom, particularly a latex condom, then do not use an oil lubricant at the same time, because oil just doesn't work well with latex, and it can cause these micro tears in the condom, thereby compromising the effectiveness of your condoms. And the third category of lubricants are silicone-based lubes. They're quite thick, they're very slippery, and they last a lot longer than water-based lubricants. They can be used together with condoms, there's no problem there, and they are also sufficient when it comes to anal penetration. So if you're playing with anal, a silicone lubricant is typically the way to go. The contraindication here, however, are silicone sex toys. So if you're using a silicone sex toy at the same time, that probably will not work very well with the silicone lubricant. So I would recommend that you use a different kind of lubricant with a silicone toy. However, if your toys are made of anything else other than silicone, you're perfectly fine with silicone lubricant. So that's just one little thing to bear in mind and be aware of when it comes to silicone lubes. And if you'd like to learn how to make your lady even more wet, whether you're using a lubricant or not, then make sure to watch this video next.